Whitney Houston confronted security when they tried to remove black attendees, and she won. The exclusive event. The air inside the grand ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel in New York City shimmered with an almost palpable sense of exclusivity. It was the annual Harmony in Arts Gala, a star-studded affair designed to celebrate diversity and achievement within the entertainment industry, while simultaneously raising millions for various arts education programs. Limousines lined Fifth Avenue, disgorging a glittering procession of Hollywood's elite, music moguls, and fashion icons onto a red carpet bathed in the glow of 100 camera flashes. The year was 1992, and Whitney Houston, fresh off the monumental success of the Bodyguard soundtrack and its record-breaking single, I Will Always Love You, was the undisputed queen of the night. She arrived fashionably late, a vision in a custom-designed, emerald green gown that clung to her statuesque figure, her hair styled in elegant waves, and a smile that could light up the entire city. Her presence alone was enough to send a ripple of excitement through the already buzzing crowd. She was accompanied by her husband, Bobby Brown, and a small entourage, including her beloved mother, Cissy Houston, and a few close friends and industry colleagues. As she navigated the throng of admirers and photographers, her grace and poise were undeniable, a testament to the superstar she had become. Inside, the ballroom was a symphony of crystal chandeliers, white linen tables adorned with elaborate floral arrangements, and the soft murmur of polite conversation punctuated by bursts of laughter. Whitney was seated at the head table, a place of honor reserved for the evening's most distinguished guests and benefactors. She exchanged pleasantries with studio executives, producers, and fellow artists, her laughter echoing melodically through the grand space. The evening was unfolding perfectly, a testament to the industry's supposed commitment to progress and inclusion. However, as the cocktail hour began to wind down and guests started to find their seats for dinner, a subtle but deeply unsettling tension began to permeate the atmosphere near one of the secondary entrances. A group of black attendees, many of whom were emerging artists, independent filmmakers, and community leaders invited by various sponsors, found themselves inexplicably stalled. They held legitimate invitations, their names were on the guest list, yet a phalanx of stern-faced security guards, predominantly white and dressed in crisp black suits, had formed an impenetrable barrier. Whitney, engaged in a conversation with a prominent film director, initially didn't notice the commotion. But her mother, Cissy, ever vigilant and possessing a keen eye for injustice, gently touched her arm. "Nippy," she whispered, using Whitney's family nickname. "Look over there." Whitney followed her mother's gaze. Her smile faltered. She saw the confusion, then the dawning humiliation, on the faces of the black guests. She saw the dismissive gestures of the security guards, their body language radiating an unspoken message: you don't belong here. A young black actress, her eyes wide with disbelief, was attempting to show her invitation to a guard who merely shook his head, pointing vaguely towards an exit. Another, an older gentleman, a respected jazz musician, was being firmly but politely steered away from the main entrance. The scene was a stark, ugly contrast to the glittering facade of Harmony in Arts. It was a raw, undeniable display of racial profiling, happening right under the gilded ceilings of one of New York's most prestigious venues. Whitney's heart began to pound. A familiar fire, one that had fueled her performances and her fight for authenticity throughout her career, ignited within her. She had faced subtle slights and overt racism throughout her rise to stardom. But to witness such blatant disrespect, such an egregious act of exclusion at an event supposedly celebrating diversity, was an affront she could not ignore. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened. The laughter and polite chatter around her faded into a distant hum. All she could see was the injustice unfolding and the pain on the faces of those being turned away. She knew, with a certainty that resonated deep in her soul, that she could not stand by. This was not just about an event. It was about dignity, respect, and the very principles she believed in. The evening, she realized, was about to take an unexpected turn. If you're moved by Whitney's unwavering commitment to justice, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more untold stories of courage and conviction in the entertainment world. The murmurs from the main dining area grew louder as more guests began to notice the disturbance. The security guards, emboldened by their initial success in creating a barrier, were now actively attempting to escort several Black attendees towards a service exit. "There seems to be a discrepancy with your invitations," one guard stated, his voice devoid of apology. "We'll need you to step aside." The implication was clear. Their presence was deemed illegitimate, their very right to be there questioned solely based on the color of their skin. Whitney Houston, however, was not one to stand idly by while injustice unfolded. Her initial shock quickly morphed into a steely resolve. She pushed back her chair, the scraping sound momentarily cutting through the ambient noise. Bobby, sensing her shift, placed a hand on her arm, a silent question in his eyes. She met his gaze, a fierce determination burning in hers. "I can't let this happen, Bobby," she said, her voice low but firm. Sissy nodded, a proud, knowing look on her face. With a regal stride that commanded attention, Whitney began to walk towards the commotion. Her emerald gown shimmered with each step, a beacon of defiance against the drab uniforms of the security detail. Heads turned. Conversations ceased. A hush fell over the section of the ballroom she was approaching. The security guards, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the evening's biggest star, hesitated, their movements faltering. "Excuse me." Whitney's voice, usually soaring with melodic power, was now sharp and authoritative, cutting through the tension like a finely honed blade. "What exactly is going on here?" The lead security guard, a burly man with a rigid posture, turned to face her. He recognized her instantly, a flicker of surprise, then annoyance, crossing his face. "Ms. Houston," he began, attempting a deferential tone that didn't quite mask his underlying irritation. "We're just handling a minor issue with some guests who appear to have invalid credentials." Whitney's eyes, usually warm and expressive, were now cold and piercing. She looked past the guard, directly at the faces of the Black attendees who were being marginalized. She saw the fear, the anger, the profound embarrassment. "Invalid credentials?" she repeated, her voice rising slightly, carrying across the room. "These are invited guests. I recognize some of them. This is the Harmony in Arts Gala, isn't it? Or has the definition of harmony changed to exclude certain people?" Her words hung in the air, charged with an undeniable truth. The guard, flustered, tried to regain control. "Ms. Houston, with all due respect, this is a security matter. We have protocols to follow." "Protocols?" Whitney scoffed, a hint of her famous sass entering her tone. "Are your protocols to racially profile guests? Because that's what this looks like from where I'm standing. And from where they're standing." She gestured emphatically towards the group of Black attendees, who now looked at her with a mixture of awe and gratitude. The situation escalated rapidly. Other security personnel, alerted by the commotion, began to converge. Event organizers, their faces etched with panic, started to make their way towards the scene, whispering frantically into earpieces. The elegant gala was teetering on the brink of chaos, all because Whitney Houston refused to let an injustice slide. She stepped closer to the barrier of guards, her presence radiating an almost palpable force. "I want to see the guest list," she demanded, her voice now resonating with the power that had captivated millions. "And I want to see the specific reason why each of these individuals is being denied entry. If their names are on that list, they walk in. If they're not, then we have a bigger problem, because I know for a fact that many of them were personally invited by sponsors who are sitting at my table." Her challenge was direct, undeniable. The security guards, trained to handle unruly guests, were clearly unprepared for a confrontation with a global icon who was not only famous, but also fiercely intelligent and morally unyielding. The eyes of the entire ballroom were now fixed on her, a silent audience to her courageous stand. The Harmony in Arts Gala was no longer just an event. It had become a battleground for dignity, and Whitney Houston had just drawn the first line in the sand. The confrontation had begun, and there was no turning back. If you're inspired by Whitney's bravery in this moment, hit the like button on this video to show your support for standing up against injustice. The lead security guard, now visibly sweating under the intense scrutiny of Whitney Houston and the hundreds of eyes fixed upon them, stammered, "Ms. Houston, please, let's not make a scene. We can discuss this privately." He attempted to usher her away, but Whitney stood firm, her feet planted like roots. "A scene?" she retorted, her voice echoing with a newfound power that silenced the room completely. "You are making a scene by humiliating invited guests at an event that claims to celebrate diversity. There is nothing private about racial discrimination, especially when it's happening in plain sight." She turned to face the assembled guests, her gaze sweeping across the stunned faces of celebrities, executives, and socialites. "Look around you," she implored, her voice softening slightly, but losing none of its conviction. "This gala is supposed to be about harmony in arts. But what kind of harmony can there be when some voices are silenced at the door? What kind of art can flourish when the artists themselves are judged by the color of their skin, not the content of their character or their talent?" Her words were a powerful, impromptu speech, delivered with the raw emotion and conviction that had always defined her performances. She wasn't just singing a song. She was singing a truth, a painful melody of systemic injustice that resonated deeply with many in the room. A few brave souls, inspired by her courage, began to clap softly. The applause quickly grew, a ripple effect spreading through the ballroom, transforming from hesitant taps to a resounding ovation. Among the first to stand was Quincy Jones, a legendary figure in music who had worked with countless black artists and understood the insidious nature of such discrimination. He walked purposefully towards Whitney, a look of grim determination on his face, and stood beside her. Soon, other prominent black artists and allies, including Spike Lee, Oprah Winfrey, and even some white executives who were genuinely appalled, began to rise from their seats and move towards the entrance, forming a silent, powerful phalanx behind Whitney. The security guards, now completely overwhelmed, looked desperately to the event organizers who had finally arrived, their faces pale with a mixture of fear and fury. One of the organizers, a woman named Eleanor Vance, the gala's chief coordinator, stepped forward, her smile strained. "Whitney, darling, there must be some misunderstanding. Let's get you back to your table. We'll sort this out." Whitney didn't budge. "There's no misunderstanding, Eleanor," she stated, her voice unwavering. "These people are being denied entry because they are black. And until every single one of them is allowed in, and until these guards are removed for their discriminatory actions, I will not sit down. And I promise you, neither will many others in this room." She gestured to the growing crowd of supporters behind her. Her ultimatum was clear. The turning point had arrived. The gala, meant to be a celebration, had become a crucible, and Whitney Houston was holding the flame. The organizers, faced with the very real possibility of a mass walkout led by the biggest star in the world and the ensuing public relations nightmare, knew they were cornered. The media, sensing a story far more compelling than polite celebrity chatter, had already begun to descend, their cameras flashing, their microphones extended. Whitney's refusal to back down, her willingness to put her own reputation and career on the line for strangers, was a testament to her profound moral compass. She wasn't just a singer, she was a force of nature, a champion for justice, and in that moment, she embodied the very spirit of courage. The ballroom, once a symbol of superficial glamour, had been transformed into a stage for a powerful act of defiance, all orchestrated by the woman who simply refused to let injustice stand. What's the most powerful example of someone standing up against injustice that you've ever witnessed or heard about? Comment below and share your thoughts on Whitney's courageous stand. The standoff continued, the tension in the grand ballroom thick enough to cut with a knife. Eleanor Vance, the gala coordinator, exchanged frantic whispers with other organizers. The initial attempts to placate Whitney had failed spectacularly. Now, the pressure was mounting from all sides. The media, having caught wind of the unfolding drama, were pressing against the velvet ropes, their lenses focused intently on Whitney and the growing crowd of supporters behind her. The narrative was already forming. Whitney Houston, the global superstar, confronting racial discrimination head-on. Eleanor, her face a mask of barely contained fury, finally approached Whitney again, this time with a different tactic. Her voice was low, laced with a thinly veiled threat. "Whitney, you need to understand the implications of this. This event has major sponsors. Your presence here is tied to contracts, endorsements. You're jeopardizing a lot, not just for yourself, but for the foundation, for everyone involved." Whitney met her gaze, her expression unyielding. And what about the implications for these people, Eleanor? She countered, gesturing to the still-barred black attendees. What about the implications for every black artist, every black professional, who walks into a room like this and is made to feel unwelcome, unworthy? My contracts mean nothing if I have to compromise my integrity to keep them. The threats continued. Whispers of breach of contract, unprofessional conduct, and damaging the brand circulated among the organizers. Whitney knew the stakes were high. Her career was at an unprecedented peak, and a public controversy of this magnitude, especially one involving a direct challenge to powerful industry figures, could have severe repercussions. She could lose endorsements, future film roles, even record deals. The entertainment industry, for all its talk of progress, still held a tight grip on its stars, and defiance often came at a steep price. Yet, Whitney's resolve only hardened. She thought of her own journey, the subtle slights, the constant need to prove herself in a predominantly white industry. She thought of her mother, Sissy, who had instilled in her a fierce sense of self-worth and a refusal to tolerate disrespect. She thought of the countless black artists who had paved the way, often facing far greater obstacles. She was not just fighting for these individuals. She was fighting for a principle, for a future where such incidents would be unthinkable. Bobby Brown, ever protective, stood by her side, his hand resting reassuringly on her lower back. Cissy Houston, her eyes brimming with pride, simply nodded, a silent affirmation of her daughter's courage. The support from her peers, the likes of Quincy Jones and Oprah, further solidified her stance. They were a united front, a powerful testament to the collective desire for change. The media frenzy outside intensified. News vans were pulling up, reporters were clamoring for information. The story was no longer confined to the ballroom. It was exploding onto the national stage. The organizers, realizing they were losing control of the narrative and facing an unprecedented public relations disaster, knew they had to act. The image of Whitney Houston, the world's biggest pop star, standing defiantly against racial discrimination, was a powerful one, and it was rapidly gaining traction. Eleanor Vance, her face now a mask of defeat, finally conceded. She turned to the lead security guard, her voice tight with suppressed anger. "All right," she snapped, "remove these guards. And ensure every single person with an invitation is allowed entry immediately. And I want a full report on how this happened by morning." The guards, looking utterly humiliated, began to disperse, their barrier crumbling. The path was clear. Whitney watched, her expression unwavering, as the black attendees, their faces now alight with relief and gratitude, began to walk into the ballroom. She had held her ground, faced down the threats, and refused to compromise her values. The battle was far from over, but this skirmish, this crucial moment of defiance, had been won. Her unwavering stance had forced the hand of the establishment, proving that even in the face of immense pressure, one voice, backed by conviction, could make a profound difference. The next steps would be critical, but for now, dignity had been restored. If you're captivated by Whitney's strength and resilience in the face of career threats, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our deep dives into iconic moments like this. The immediate aftermath of Whitney Houston's confrontation was a whirlwind of emotions. As the security guards, their faces flushed with embarrassment, retreated, the previously barred black attendees were finally welcomed into the grand ballroom. A wave of applause, louder and more heartfelt than any before, erupted as they walked through the now open entrance. Many approached Whitney, their eyes shining with tears, offering heartfelt thanks. She embraced them warmly, a genuine smile returning to her face, a smile that reached her eyes and conveyed a profound sense of shared victory. The atmosphere in the ballroom had irrevocably shifted. What began as a superficial display of glamour had been transformed into a powerful statement about justice and inclusion. The Harmony in Arts Gala, instead of being remembered for its opulence, would forever be etched in memory as the night Whitney Houston stood up for what was right. The event organizers, though outwardly composed, were clearly reeling. Eleanor Vance, after ensuring the smooth entry of all guests, made a hasty announcement, vaguely apologizing for an unfortunate misunderstanding and reaffirming the gala's commitment to diversity. Her words, however, rang hollow against the backdrop of Whitney's courageous actions. Whitney, having achieved her immediate goal, returned to her table, but the evening was far from over. The media, now fully engaged, swarmed her, eager for a statement. She chose her words carefully, speaking not with anger, but with a quiet dignity that amplified her message. Tonight was a reminder, she told a cluster of reporters, her voice calm but firm, that true harmony cannot exist where there is discrimination. We must always challenge injustice, no matter where we find it. Every person deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their background or the color of their skin. Her words resonated globally, becoming headlines that overshadowed every other aspect of the gala. The impact of that night extended far beyond the walls of the St. Regis. The incident sparked a broader conversation within the entertainment industry about systemic racism and the subtle, often insidious, ways it manifested. Many organizations and event planners were forced to reevaluate their security protocols and diversity policies. Whitney's stand empowered countless individuals, both within and outside the industry, to speak up against similar injustices they faced. She became an even more potent symbol of strength and integrity, her voice not just a musical instrument, but a powerful tool for social change. In the weeks and months that followed, there were indeed repercussions. Some endorsements were quietly withdrawn, and certain industry figures, uncomfortable with her outspokenness, kept their distance. But for every door that closed, another, often more meaningful, one opened. Her fan base, already immense, grew even more loyal, admiring her not just for her voice, but for her character. She received an outpouring of support from civil rights leaders, community organizations, and millions of ordinary people who saw in her a champion for the voiceless. Whitney Houston's legacy is, of course, defined by her unparalleled vocal talent and her groundbreaking musical achievements. But this moment, this courageous confrontation at a glittering gala, added another profound layer to her story. It showcased her moral conviction, her unwavering commitment to justice, and her willingness to use her immense platform to fight for others. She didn't just sing about love and empowerment, she lived it. She proved that true stardom wasn't just about selling records or filling arenas. It was about using your influence to make the world a more just and equitable place. The Harmony in Arts Gala of 1992 became a pivotal moment, a testament to the power of one individual to challenge the status quo and win. Whitney Houston, the girl from Newark who conquered the world with her voice, also conquered prejudice with her courage, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire. Her victory that night wasn't just for the attendees she defended. It was a victory for dignity, for equality, and for the enduring power of standing your ground. What an incredible story of courage and conviction. If you were moved by Whitney Houston's unwavering stand against injustice, please like this video and comment below with your thoughts on her powerful legacy.